Welcome to the Sisterhood Effect, where friendship empowerment and connection come to life. I'm Danica.
And I'm Cynthia, and we're two friends on a mission to inspire women everywhere to find their way, embrace their power, and build meaningful circles of support.
This podcast is about celebrating the strength of women individually and together. We believe in the magic that happens when women come together, share their stories, and lift each other up.
Whether you're seeking clarity, confidence, or a community, you found a space where you can feel like you're not going through this journey alone.
So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and join us as we explore the beauty of female friendship, the power of vulnerability, and the journey to becoming your most authentic self.
This is the Sisterhood Effect, where women rise together.
Okay, welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode, Cynthia and I wanted to chat a little bit about how to navigate friendship breakups when you're feeling like a relationship needs to end, because it's like we don't expect this. When we come into friendship, it's so easy to be like, this person is going to be in my life forever. And then what happens when that doesn't happen? When things end abruptly or when you fall out of alignment or whatnot. And I think that if you're going through something of the sorts, there's just like, I just want to send you so much love because it's such a hard thing to move through. And I don't think that there are a lot of I don't think there's a lot of people like talking about this. Like, how do you move through that? How do you deal with the grief of losing a friend? Like, how do you move on? And is the relationship at the point where you need to break up? Or is this something that you can actually salvage and move forward together and grow together? So that's kind of the premise of today's episode.
Do you want to start with just maybe some experiences you've had with that?
Yeah. I'd like to start with what are the signs that you can notice when maybe like a friendship breakup is gonna happen or when you're almost there or you're starting to feel like things are off. And I think that it comes down to you're noticing the same similar patterns repeating. We've talked in the past about different dynamics, maybe like the damsel and the hero pattern, things like that. When you start feeling really consumed by that relationship, I think is a good indicator that there's some sort of weird energy going on. And if the relationship brings you more pain than it does support and joy, I think that that's a good sign as well. Maybe you're no longer feeling in alignment when it comes to your views and your values. Maybe you feel like a broken record. Like I've had a friendship where when we would get together, this person was always complaining about the same thing and then asking for advice, and I'd give that same advice, and then that advice is not being taken, and then we hang out again and it's the same issue. And so it kind of feels repetitive, and you start to feel like your energy is being drained out. Hanging out with this person is taking more than it's giving. And I think that there are seasons in life where you can have friendships that they're going through something and you can be there to support them and you can be there all the way through. But when it's starting to feel like this is all the friendship is, maybe it's that y'all are connected through trauma bonding or y'all are connected through hating the same person. There are a lot of signs when it's just that relationship is not working anymore. And I think that it's felt energetically more than anything else. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't have to be like you're kind of saying a huge fight or a big disagreement. It's kind of more about even just subtle energy. If the relationship, and this goes for any relationship, family relationships, like romantic
Mm,
relationships, friendships, if it's causing you more stress and taking more energy from you and it's not giving you life, giving you joy, giving you purpose, then maybe
mm.
it's something that you just don't have room for right now in your life, and that's okay.
And I think that there's space for us to grow in relationships. Like we've talked about this before, to have like more difficult conversations and move through something together. But if you've
Mm-hmm.
tried to have these conversations and it wasn't received well, or you're not able to come to understanding, you're not able to grow through it together, it just feels really, really sticky. Maybe that's when you know that you need a little bit of space from that relationship. And maybe there needs to be some growing apart before y'all can have a really healthy relationship. Or maybe this person was just meant to be there in your life for a season. Because I think
Yeah.
like I hear that a lot. Like some people are there for a season, some
Mm-hmm.
people are there for life. And
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't take away from the fact that it can be difficult and
Mm, yeah.
like it can hurt and it can be hard to let go of that because
Mm-hmm.
maybe you had an idea that this person was going to be there forever. And I think that one of the biggest signs too of if a friendship is going to end in chaos is when it starts out so high. Like I've noticed that the friendships that I've had friendship breakups with and that have been the most painful for me have been the ones where you start off and you're like soul sisters from the start. There's some sort of trauma bonding that's happening and you're immediately soul sisters. And then it's like you're on top of the world and you're like this person is going to be with me forever. And there's a quality of love bombing within that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you become completely consumed, like they become your whole life and you become their whole life
Mm-hmm.
and you spend all of your time together and then suddenly something happens and it's like y'all were never friends and the communication isn't quite right
Mm-hmm.
and it feels like it doesn't feel like that closeness that there was before. And I think that maybe this has to do with attachment styles too, because certain people might be super codependent, like you're creating codependency together. And the moment that something happens, then it's completely like so much space in between each other.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I feel like I haven't had so much experience with like friendship breakups, but in the context of like any type of breakup, I think that can be one of the types of relationships where like there is like a lot of love bombing in the beginning, whether that's intentional or not intentional.
Mhm.
And then realizing later on that maybe you didn't have that deep of a connection and it was just more like what's that other word? Oh,
Like the projection.
like
Yeah,
lust,
yeah.
like in terms of
Yes.
intimacy, like there's like that like exciting lust in the beginning, but there's no deeper emotional connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the foundation hasn't been built for the
Mm-hmm.
trust to grow. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, it's the relationship is built out of almost like replacing someone out of your life. What I've noticed for me was that maybe I had someone in a position of like this person is so close to me, and then this this maybe it's a breakup, right? Like with a romantic partner, and then I just fill that spot with somebody else, and then they become like my
Mm-hmm.
everything. And this is my own responsibility to take on. So this type of relationship
Mm-hmm.
happened to me in my early 20s where I wasn't noticing that I was even doing this. And then when someone becomes your everything, like nobody can become your everything. And it's bound to
Mm-hmm.
create some sort of friction after a while. And so, other ways that you might notice that there needs to be some sort of space between one another. Maybe there's been some sort of boundary cross where the boundary was super clear and then the
Mm-hmm.
boundary was crossed. And of course, like there are consequences to those types of things. Maybe a boundary was crossed, but then it wasn't expressed. And so that can be an opportunity to express your boundaries and communicate that and give them the opportunity to then respect your boundaries moving forward. But if
Mm-hmm.
those boundaries have been addressed and set and clear, and you're being walked all over or disrespected, then that's a whole nother story. Also, perhaps there's been betrayal happening,
Mm-hmm.
and that's super hard as well. Whatever reason it is that you feel like you need a friendship breakup, it's most likely valid reason. And you have permission to leave that friendship. Like if you haven't,
Yeah.
nobody's told you that before. Like there's permission to choose yourself and decide that you want some space. And maybe the whole friendship doesn't need to end, but maybe you need a little bit of space for the meantime. So we can move into how do we break up with someone that is your friend? Because so easy to break up with a romantic partner. That makes sense. But like when it comes to a friend, what types of avenues can you take?
I guess it could be hard in both a friendship breakup and a romantic relationship breakup, right? Both can be very hard. But I do think that the romantic relationship breakup is talked about more than
Yeah.
breakups and given more attention than friendship breakups. So, like, I'm glad we're talking about this. Do you have any advice?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I look at it as two different venues. Like you can go the avenue that this relationship is just no longer in alignment and maybe they feel it too. And so it's kind of like this natural fizzing out of the relationship. So nothing really, doesn't need to
Mm-hmm.
be any big conversation around it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like, you have new friends, they have new friends. You're not really feeling
Mm-hmm.
like you want to reach out to them. You're not really feeling
Right.
like you want to make plans, and that's fine. That's a way to go at it. And so, like, energetically, that can just be felt. And then, if at some point y'all are aligning or you see each other, like, there can still be that love and respect and whatnot.
Right.
But you don't need to be so close and you don't need to
Right.
make the effort and arrange friendship dates if you're just no longer feeling it. So that's the fizzle out the way to do this. And then another way might be a conversation, like having that more difficult conversation. And maybe it gives the opportunity to change, but then maybe you're like, we've been through this so many times before, and like it's just not working for me right now. I think I need some space, and I've been coward in the past, I think, when I've just taken space when the relationship needed a conversation. And yeah, when you are very, very close with someone and you just don't know how to address it and you just don't address it, that can lead to even more discomfort. But I'm always an advocate for having the difficult conversation, and maybe it does need that. And if you are
Mm.
to approach it, I guess it's never easy. And I don't think that it can ever be perfect. Like, give yourself permission to maybe it is a little bit messy as you go through it, or maybe it's just a message like, hey, I'm needing some space right now. Yeah.
Have you done
And
that before?
I have been on the receiving end of it.
Mm. And
And
how
I
did
think
that
that,
go? Like for you, like being on the receiving end, how did it feel for you?
yeah. And I'm saying receiving end, but I think that I was maybe more on, like, I think it was kind of mutual potentially. I'm not even sure. I'm trying to think now. Like, that
Mm,
was just, it was messy in general. And I think that I did need the space, and we just like weren't understanding each other. And
mm,
I think that we were in agreement that the relationship was just bringing more pain than it was filling us up.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's never easy. And I don't
Yeah.
think that it's meant to be easy. Like that shit's hard. So I would just say have grace with yourself as you're moving through that. And maybe you reach out to friends who are supportive to you
Yeah.
and kind of like see how to navigate those types of things.
I feel like the way that you, or what you just shared, perhaps a way to think about it too is like, I mean, if you're saying you're kind of on the receiving end of it, but then that you guys energetically felt it, you probably felt a sense of relief too. Like
Oh
probably
yeah.
sadness, but also a lot of relief. So maybe people
Mhm.
who, let's say, are in that situation who are thinking about, oh, maybe I need some space from this person, they can think that, like, well, maybe that other person also feels what I'm feeling. And that
Mhm.
by me doing this, it's gonna bring, it might be sad, but it in the end might bring relief and eventually joy for both parties, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like not just like you being like, oh, well, like I'm done with this, like, and you don't have to f maybe feel like you're a bad person if you do that because maybe you're being a good person where, you're both realizing and you're just taking that first step to say, hey, maybe this is something that we need. And
Mhm.
maybe that person is going to be grateful to you for doing that. Maybe they were thinking about doing it, but they didn't have the courage to. And then you do it.
Yeah.
So it's good in the end for both of you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that if you're feeling it, most likely they're also feeling it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so that conversation, I don't think that there's like I have not seen it go necessarily well because I feel like once you're done with it, you're like, thank God. Like that really like
Mhm.
that was just too much and I do
Mhm.
need that relief, but I did need to stop talking in a conversation. Like the last conversation that I had with my last friendship breakup, which was a few years ago, we were going back and forth and we could not understand each other.
Mhm.
It's almost like I was trying to be understood or understand this person, and they were also maybe trying. I don't know if they were. And then I was like, this is conversation is going nowhere, nowhere. And I needed to stop answering
Mhm.
because it was just overwhelming. It was not working. And maybe you don't need the last word. Maybe you don't need closure in that moment. Maybe you just
Yeah.
need to step away. And what I did in that moment was like I this is not going anywhere. This conversation's not going anywhere. I stepped away and I called another one of my friends and I just went over there and I received some support and that was all that needed to happen. And I don't think I even sent another message after that because there's nothing else that I can do at this point and maybe space just needs to be taken for a while and then we can kind of connect again. And I don't know how you feel about blocking. What are your thoughts about that if you have any ideas?
I don't know. I don't really tend to block people. I don't think I've ever blocked like a friend before.
Hmm.
I mean, I think everyone's different. Some people like it is helpful for them to just like not like know that that is not a possibility that communication can be so easily rekindled. I guess the only people I've blocked before are like exes, like
Yeah. Mm.
which in those cases it's like, yes, let me make sure that there's no more contact because I don't want any contact, any possibility of contact. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
I
tool,
and
I think.
yeah, I'm not a blocker at all. And I like to think that we're all on our journey and we're all growing. And
Hmm.
if this person feels called to reach out to me, I'm always willing to have a conversation. But
Hmm.
I found it so difficult in one of those relationships because I receive full blocking treatment.
Hmm.
And it can be difficult also for I think my ego mixed in that as well.
Hmm.
And feeling like I've
Yeah.
been deleted from somebody's life. It's like we had
Hmm.
something so special and you've completely deleted all of that, like any trace, right? And I think that that's also a consequence of that relationship bringing pain because then like I understand why it's happened. It's happened because this person doesn't want the intrusivity of me seeing their stuff or having my energy like onto their shit. And maybe I would be somebody to look at their page because I am. I like to keep tabs in a way. You know, this person was really important to me at some point and it's like I want to know like what are you up to and all of those things.
Yeah.
I no longer have access to that and that's just something that needed to also be accepted and move
Hmm.
through and that's something we can also talk about. But like I understand why people do that and maybe it's for their own protection and safety, energetic bubble and whatnot. But I do like it is a hard thing being on the receiving end of blocking. And if you are a blocker, you know,
Hmm.
by all means, maybe that is something that you need to do. And I think that that leads into like the process of grief that
Mm-hmm.
we sometimes need to go through in a friendship breakup and really accepting that this person like no longer wants you in their life when you thought that that wasn't going to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And grief is such a layered thing, and we obviously associate grief with death, but it is kind of like a death of the friendship and a death of who you
Definitely.
thought that you could be with this person as well. Like maybe you had ideas or visions of like what you were hoping your life would look like. Maybe you thought y'all are going to build a great business together. Who knows what you had in mind for the both of you, but that's all dead.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a process for grief, and the
Yeah.
process for grief goes in 5 steps, right? So there's the denial, there's the anger, there's the bargaining, there's the depression, and then there's finally the acceptance. So if you want, more resources on grief, there's definitely the resources out there. But I found that like it's been an interesting process for myself with certain relationships. I think that it goes in waves, and you've got to be gentle with yourself when that grief comes up and know what to do and how to resource from it. Because I think that sometimes an easy, or I think like maybe, I don't want to say an easy thing to do, but like an
Defense
automatic
mechanism?
response.
Defense
No,
mechanism?
like more like an automatic response would be like as soon as you're getting into those feelings, you almost like want to reach out to them and tell them what's going through. Like I've had points where I've been like, I'm so angry. And then I move through something and then it's like I'm so sad. Like going through that whole process, I think the best advice that I can give with that is just don't involve them in there. Like there's a reason why y'all are taking space. And I think that that's the best thing that you can do when you're moving through those waves of grief is to reach for support from people that love and trust that you love
Mm-hmm.
and trust. It's to maybe you do write, right? Because like sometimes that communication needs to come out, that anger, the sadness, like you need to feel it, you need to move through it. Maybe you do write a letter, but like don't send it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because like that's when things get real messy, is that like 3 a.m. message, email,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is. And like I've also been there, and that just doesn't go well, And if you really feel that urge, that's the word I was looking for earlier, that urge to send this person a message, really sit on it. And
Mm-hmm.
what I would also suggest is like running it over with a friend or multiple friends that you trust and that are very grounded and that are going to call you out on your shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that oftentimes when you're wanting to send messages, there are like little jabs in there and there's weird energies mixed up with it because it's such a intricate and layered thing.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like when you moved through that, like the 5 stages you were talking about, do you feel like you went through each one like systematically
Mm.
in, chronological order, or do you feel like you kind of went into one and then the other and then the other and then back to that one and back to that one? I feel like maybe it's the flippy floppy of all the different categories, and that's something I want to like point out because I've dealt with grief also, not in that same way, but in different ways. And like giving yourself grace to go through all those stages consistently and all the time and back and forth. That's the way we should look at it. I think there's a lot of talk and stigma maybe around that where like, oh, it's like a stepwise process and then you have to reach the ultimate goal of acceptance. It's hard to reach that, and I think you go through phases. Sometimes you'll hit acceptance, but then you might also just go back to one of the other stages. And like that's okay.
Mm. I just want to hold space for that emotion as well. That's a great point, and I 100% agree with you. Like, it's not a linear path where you are then one day completely accepting of it. There are seasons and times where, like, it comes back up and you kind of move through it.
Mhm.
And I think that grief always requires support. You're not meant to move through this alone. And I think that that's where sisterhood really comes into play.
And I want like people to know, if they haven't heard it before, that that's okay. Like even like 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, there's in our society, there's a lot of like, oh, well, like that happened like 5 years ago. Why are you still sad about it? Like, why are you still angry about it? That's okay. That's totally normal. Like, I think that's
Yeah.
still like grief. And you can, again, go to acceptance at some points, but in different seasons, you can move back into or move into, not back. I don't want to say back because then that implies that, that trajectory again. I don't know. It's just a process. And like you said, the most important thing is support, getting support through every single stage.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about when do you rekindle? How do you do it? And when do you know that now's the time to rekindle a relationship? Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's so funny because I have like really maybe not that many thoughts on that because I think something I wanted to say too as we were having this conversation is I feel like I want people to know, well, I guess younger people, because when I was younger, I probably went through a lot of the same thing that everyone has gone through, but through my life experiences, I've really realized the importance of where my energy goes and the people that I surround myself with. So, like, in middle school or whatever, I just like let whoever in, and like whoever was going to be my friend or wanted to be my friend, I was just like, okay, let's be friends. But then throughout life experiences, I've really begun to realize that there are some people that you just shouldn't let in and should not let take your energy. And so now I'm super careful in the relationships that I develop when I meet someone. I'm very critical on like when I see their actions not kind of being in alignment with somebody that I respect and value and can trust. I just don't develop that relationship at all. And it doesn't have to be like a really rude thing where I'm like, oh, yeah, I can't hang out with you. But it's just like a natural, oh, like let me just stand over here and talk to these people versus these people.
Yes. And that's the thing, right? You don't need to get out of your way to be super nice to everyone. You can be kind without being nice. That was a huge light bulb moment for me. And I love how you touched upon like people don't automatically deserve your energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to rekindling, and I've had that process done before, I think that there needs to be lots of responsibility taken, and whether it be like on your side, on their side, on both, because oftentimes why a relationship ended, both people are involved. You're dancing together, you're creating this dynamic together, right? So there needs to be some self-responsibility, like more, there's been awareness of what went wrong, there's been lessons learned, and now you've decided to take accountability for how you've shown up in the relationship. I've had something come up recently where I've had a tumultuous relationship with my stepmom, and it's been like really painful in a lot of ways. And I guess you would call it like a friendship breakup, but it's, it's family. And I have some desire to like not all of the desire because like I talked about it afterwards with my partner. I was like, I don't actually know if I fully want to bring this person back into my life. But when she reached out, and she did just a few weeks ago, it was just a message that didn't really make much sense to me, and it was like, I don't feel close to you anymore, and whatnot. And I was like, is she like, I could try to read between the lines that like she was wanting to feel close to me again, but like she wasn't saying it. She wasn't speaking it out loud. She wasn't really saying much. And this was a message that she sent at like 12 a.m. And so a lot of these points just made me think, okay, she's not saying what she wants. She's just telling me that she's accepted that we're no longer in communication. And so it's not showing me that she wants to rekindle anything. So I think like a big point of like this rekindling process is it's speaking it out loud and saying, I would love for us to work through our relationship again. And then maybe there are boundaries around how you do that. What I'd like to say here is take things slow. And when I went through this process of receiving that message, I had a moment where I was like, if we were to rekindle our relationship, how would we go about it? And the only thing that made sense for me was if we were to work with a therapist. Like, there's no way that I would actually just sit down with her and have a conversation because in the past, the behavior, like you said, the behavior was always the same. We wouldn't understand each other in conversation. So I would need a mediator there with us. And not to say that like you and your friend go to a therapist, but maybe you have conditions around how the friendship is gonna change and how you're gonna shift the patterns moving forward. Because we've had this happened before where we've
Mhm.
broken up and then we've
Mhm.
gotten back together because we've had one conversation, but the
Mhm.
root of the problem isn't solved. And
Mhm.
that thing would keep on happening. And in this case with my stepmom, it was like the behavior was just not in alignment with the friendships that I have and how I'm usually treated in my friendships. Like it's not the same, like she doesn't talk to me in the same ways that my other friendships talk to me. So I'm not going to accept that this is the way that we communicate because that's just not the way that I communicate with anybody else. Why would I make an exception for you? So for me, my condition is if we are to have a relationship, it would just need to be different. And
Yeah.
in order to have that change, in order to make it different, it takes effort. It's not just something that like changes
Yeah.
automatically and clearly not with a message like that.
Go on something you said. Maybe you do go to a therapist together to have a mediator. Like people go to relationship therapy all the time, right? And so if that relationship is important to you, then maybe you do go to therapy for it. And maybe we normalize going to really like therapists for friendships. So if
Yeah.
that friendship is worth it. Where I was going with the fact that, I've learned to be more conscientious of where I put my energy is like because I've done that, I don't think I've ever needed to rekindle anything in a relationship because I've been so careful with who I put my energy into. And so that was just to say, if you're careful, I think in terms of friendships, I mean, the stepmom part of it is like
Yeah.
you can't really choose that. It wasn't your choice. I think what you're saying is so important because when that topic of rekindling comes up, no matter who it comes from and who ends up initiating that, it's important to just address all the issues of why that relationship ended in the first place. And it's not just like
Yes.
if nothing has changed and no work has been done, time is not just going to solve all the issues because as soon as you restart that relationship, and that goes with any relationship, all the problems that were there before are still going to be there.
100%. And
Yeah.
that like that anger and sadness needs to be spoken about. Yeah, you can't just tiptoe around everything that you've been holding into. And you also need to be willing to hear somebody out and all of their things. Like, are you willing to sit in that discomfort of hearing the impact of the wrath of your friendship? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then be able to like really truly understand where you both went wrong
Mhm.
and what you could have done differently and how you're choosing to move forward differently in the future. And that takes a lot and it takes willingness from both sides to
Mhm.
do that. Mhm.
To
And
do the work.
sometimes, yeah, to do that work. And sometimes it's just not fucking worth it. And
Yeah.
leads us to
Yeah.
this moving on part, right?
Yeah.
I'm like agitated through this conversation because I'm like, ah!
I, well, I'm glad we can help you work through some stuff too.
You. I appreciate it. I honestly like it infuriates me that there's been all like these friendships that or issues that have just like taken so much of my energy. Yeah, where I've tried so hard to make it work and it hasn't. And it's been like a dark cloud. And then you start realizing that like years have gone by and there are still times where you still feel that anger and you still feel that why couldn't we have just made it work and what could it have been different? And then you're kind of ruminating and you're you're creating suffering for yourself in that
Yeah.
process. And so where do we go from here and how do we actually move on? Move on, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that for me, friendships that are really supportive and grounding and that we've built trust have been so monumental in helping me move through that and move on because I see the support that I receive and I'm like, of course, this other person can never be replaced, but I'm getting so much care and nourishment from these other people. And these are the people that are sticking around. And so these are
Yeah.
the people that I want to put my energy into and not the
Hmm.
suffering of those failed friendships and
Yeah.
relationships and whatnot. So I think that that's a really important part.
Hmm.
I think that also, and not ruminating and going back on to like what went wrong and what could have done better, da, 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 and I know that like, especially if we're in this healing realm and whatnot, you probably take some time to figure things out, but can you extract the lessons of what you've learned and change your behavior moving forward in different relationships so that maybe things like this don't happen again in the future relationships? So can you come to a place where you've learned something from that relationship and you have gratitude for it as well?
Hmm.
Like actual gratitude for whatever they brought into your life. Maybe it's gratitude for the lesson that was learned, and maybe it's just straight up gratitude of how they've opened up your life in other ways and even being your friend. I've had that friendship that, yeah, it didn't end up working out, but like I wouldn't be the person I am right now if I didn't go through that friendship. So I do have a lot of gratitude for that friendship. And also to touch on that grief again, I think that there's other things that you can lose from losing the friendship, not only just the friendship, but maybe other friendships around it or like a friend group. I remember like in summer of 2020, I had a big group of friends and I was on top of the world and we were at the beach and it was the best time ever. And that's before the friendship exploded, right? And then the next year in 2021, I'm at the beach and I'm alone and I don't even have anybody that I can call upon and be like, hey, do you want to hang out at the beach? Like literally, I had nobody.
Mm.
But also give yourself patience because like now I have people and I have built that community around me. So
Mhm.
there might be like a little season or a moment where like there was so much destruction that there's nothing left.
Yeah.
And then you need to rebuild. That process of rebuilding might take some time as well, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. You know, if you are in that place where you feel completely alone, like there are ways to change that. And I think that joining women's circles, going to
Mhm.
retreats, that's a huge part of it as well. If you're looking for that connection again, that's where you're going to find a lot of people that are going to be really supportive as well if you're looking for that like immediately. But you can be patient and like start building friendships here and there. And you might want to look at one of our earlier episodes where we're
Yeah.
giving tips on how to cultivate like new friendships and
Yeah.
sisterhood. Another way that you can help yourself in moving on would be cord cutting and reclaiming your energy. So you can do like some cord cutting meditations where you might even be visualizing them in front of you. And I like to use colors as well. So this is how I personally do it. I feel myself and the color that it feels when we're entangled, and I feel it in my body and I feel it extending out from myself. And I see this person in front of me and I see that entanglement of color inside their body as well.
Mhm.
And then I go and I reclaim my energy so I can pull it from the
Mhm.
root or I can cut it with scissors. I like to do the pulling from the root. And so I'm reclaiming my energy and then I see the color change inside my body and I see their color change and I see more space in between the both of us. And
Mhm.
I feel myself grounding and feeling stable and strong as I am. And I cultivate safety for myself apart from them. So that can be a good exercise to do, but you want to make sure that you're like ready for it. Because if you're just doing it to do it, it might not work as well. And then a really powerful way to move on is to write a letter and you're not sending it to them, but you could respond to that letter as if you're that person and then receive like a response from them, the response that you're wanting to receive. Because maybe you need some sort of closure. And if you're feeling like you need some sort of closure, they're not going to give you that closure. If you send them an email, they're not going to give a fuck. Right? Like maybe they'll respond, but they probably won't. And like even if they do respond, it's probably not going to be what you need. So give
Mhm.
yourself what you need.
Yeah.
Like you can give yourself what you need. You can hold that little girl inside of you and give her the love that you're trying to resource from somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like crying now.
Aww.
That was such a intense episode.
I think it's healing just to talk about things, and I'm here for you. So I want to hold space for you.
I appreciate that. And yeah, it's like giving yourself some grace through it. And I think that there is like love and hate are so intrinsically linked that I think that when you fully moved on, it's when it's almost irrelevant. And I
Mhm.
don't know if you ever get to that place. And I think that it's okay if you don't get to that place. And
Mhm.
maybe you can just get to a place where it's no longer coming up in your mind every single day. And maybe when it comes up in your mind, like you give yourself that acknowledgement and that presence. Because I believe emotions are meant to be felt through for like maybe 90 seconds. I don't know what the actual time is, but if you let yourself feel the emotion all the way through, then you can actually just let it go and like not be addicted to the emotional rush that brings you and not
Mhm.
torturing yourself with it. Yeah, it's hard. Like, I just want to give you a big hug if you're going through a friendship breakup and you're having a difficult time with it. It's
Yeah.
hard. And it's okay that if you're having a hard time with it, and maybe we can take a big breath together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathe in. Mhm. At the end of the day, I think that we're all little children
Mm.
on a playground. And some people, like, if you think about like soul contracts and things like that, some people are meant to pass through your life for a season. Some people are meant to stay there forever. And maybe we can become a little bit more just flowy with that process, eventually, and just focus on the people who are really there for
Yeah.
you and there with you and doing life with you in the moment. And come back to yourself. Like, don't give up on yourself. Even if someone has given up on you, don't give up on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. All right.
I think
I think
that's,
this
yeah.
that's probably good. That's probably a longer episode than what we're used to, but I think that it needed a little bit of space and time. So,
Yeah.
if you enjoy this episode, and if you have any thoughts or things that you'd like to share about this, please feel free to reach out to us. If you would like some support, we're there.
Mhm.
And we will see you next time. Mwah.